This morning, Germany is in focus. We're exploring the ties between East Texas and one of America's closest allies. And today, it's a closer look at a dark moment in world history. Now, Germany is still coming to terms with its role in World War II, and former concentration camps have now been turned into memorial sites around the country. GMA's Luckie is in Dachau, north of the city of Munich. All right, let's go there.
Good morning, Andrea. Really, across the entire country of Germany, you'll often hear the phrase used, "never again." It's a collective acknowledgement of what happened during the Holocaust. And it's part of a greater effort to educate future generations about what happened here more than 80 years ago. So at sites and memorials like Dachau here, they're using this as a living history. Now in Germany, school kids are actually required to visit concentration camps, museums, and memorial sites. They're exposed to history, however uncomfortable, in a very careful way. Now Dachau was the very first concentration camp. It was initially used for political prisoners. The Nazi regime later used it as a model for all others. 41,500 people died right here. They were murdered, they were tortured, starved, or died by sickness. Now most of us in Texas have really never had an opportunity to understand the consequences of that kind of history firsthand. But Texas law actually requires all of the state's 1,200 public school districts to instruct kids age-appropriate curriculum on the Holocaust. And another law that just took effect here at the start of this month is ordering a survey of exactly what this curriculum looks like at the local level.
Are we going to hope that this never happens again under similar circumstances in lesser numbers? What are we to do?
Now, hearing from Holocaust survivors just like Robert Chandler there is one of the ways that many Texas schools observe Holocaust Remembrance Week. Now, earlier this summer, journalism teacher Josh Alt visited every concentration camp in Poland through a program called Classrooms Without Borders. He's now producing a documentary to show his students what he learned.
I'm going to teach them about the journalism skills in interviewing people and editing stuff to share stories. Plus, they'll get all the knowledge about my experience in Poland. And then I'm also going to be assigning all my kids different topics during the Holocaust. The death camps, they'll have people, they'll be able to research survivors, and I'm going to incorporate that in where they're going to have to do news stories about the different topics of the Holocaust. So during that entire month, the students will see my work that I did while I was there, plus they'll be doing their own work. And so I really, truly believe that all of these topics are very easily through history and then through journalism to be incorporated into the classroom as well.
And it's not limited to reading books or just watching videos. Hundreds of East Texas students are exposed to World War II history on field trips to places like the American Freedom Museum. It's located on the Brook Hill School campus in Bullard. Now, their Hall of Freedom wing documents every major conflict involving the United States. Their World War II gallery features more than 200 artifacts, including a C-47 airplane fuselage. It also contains the Nazi flag that flew over the Dachau concentration camp right here the very day it was liberated by American forces back in April of 1945. Video interviews with American military veterans play on displays throughout the museum.
Is to inspire or encourage students to always choose to be the hero, whether they're the hero for one or hero for many, that they make those good choices in their life that impact those around them in a positive way, like the men and women throughout our history have done.
Now, recent national surveys actually seem to reveal an alarming knowledge gap among young Americans. Most of the Texas respondents couldn't even name a concentration camp or a ghetto, and more than 60% weren't aware that 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. All of this really underscoring the importance of the need for solid education on this topic. Reporting live in Germany this morning, I'm Luckie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you'll want to check out our In Focus section at KLTV.com and KTRE.com, and you can use your smartphone's camera to scan the QR code at the bottom of your screen, or you can find it by clicking the Community tab in our homepage. And you can see Lane's stories from all week, and you can even watch the documentary that he mentioned.